President wants House Speaker John Boehner to introduce a clean bill on continuing the budget resolution. In other words, fund it completely, not the piecemeal funding bills that have been coming forth, and nothing that defunds Obamacare. Now, Republican Congressman Peter Roskam of Illinois joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you, sir. I know you're very busy.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so the president's meeting with congressional leaders. Any insight as to how this might go?
No, that meeting is happening as we speak, so I'm obviously not in the room. My hope is that President Obama says, look, let's put something together that deals with this once and for all. Let's not lurch from crisis to crisis. Let's deal with the debt ceiling, the funding, and so forth. But there's an important principle that we've got to hold on to, and that is this. Members of Congress shouldn't be treated in a special way, and if big business gets a break under Obamacare, which they have, according to the president's order, that same break needs to be afforded to every other individual as well. That's a concern that I'm hearing from my district. They want to see the government open as any reasonable person does.
So let me ask you, if there's no Tea Party representative in this meeting with the president and the congressional leaders, what good is it?
What good is having a meeting? I think it's always helpful, and I'm hopeful that actually President Obama is moving off of this idea that he's not willing to negotiate over these core principles. He negotiated in the last debt ceiling situation. He negotiated in the situation before that. Presidents have always negotiated on debt ceilings. We've seen big changes come around when President Clinton was in office, George Bush, and others. So here's the point. The president has an opportunity to, I think, bring everybody together on a larger global situation, and we're anxious to do that. So the House has already acted, and it has enacted or passed legislation that would fund the government, keep it open, but it also says that everybody needs to be treated fairly. Members of Congress shouldn't be treated in a special way, and business shouldn't get an advantage that individuals don't have right now. So let's treat everybody fairly, let's keep the government open, and let's keep talking.
Okay, Congressman, let me play devil's advocate. When you say the president should negotiate, should he have to negotiate against his landmark legislation that did pass law, Obamacare, that was upheld by the Supreme Court to keep the government open? If it's law and it's done, and Speaker Boehner said when the elections occurred a year ago, I'm done talking about Obamacare, why should the president have to negotiate against something that's already passed?
Well, if that were the attitude that the United States had on other pieces of legislation, nothing would ever get done. So, for example, proponents of climate change legislation are not told, well, don't take that up because that's not the law right now. So that's a ridiculous assertion. I think where we've got an opportunity to come together is to recognize that Obamacare is actually very expensive. It's $1.9 trillion over 10 years. So it is very much related to spending, and let's get right to that. But what we're saying is, most importantly, as a core principle, is everybody should be treated in the same way. Members of Congress shouldn't be separated out, and certainly business shouldn't get an advantage that individuals don't have. And for the life of me, go ahead.
Quick question for you, my final minute here. In the last 24 hours, there's been some publicized splits in the Republican Party. Some complaining that the Tea Party end has pushed this too far, that this particular way of going about the negotiations isn't what everybody wants. Is the Tea Party hurting your party in the long run?
Look, you see a wide range of opinions on the Republican side and on the Democratic side. You had a number of Democrats that voted with us yesterday to make sure that Washington, D.C. was able to spend their own money or able to open the national parks or to make sure veterans' needs are met. So the great beauty of our country is we are a nation of over 300 million people that manages to come together and solve these things. But in order to solve them, we need to talk together and we need to negotiate reasonably. So my view is do what the House has already suggested, keep the government open and make sure that every American is treated exactly the same under the law and that Washington isn't creating a special class of the favored, that is members of Congress and big business. We can do this. We can figure this out.
Congressman Peter Roskam, thanks for joining us.